exciting work with theatres and music venues is Raf Orlowski. Hi Raf. Now you've worked in both research and consultancy. What did you find most interesting about each career?
Now, in teaching, it can be very interesting and rewarding. We meet first-year undergraduate students who only just got a smattering of acoustical knowledge, and then 3 years later, they leave with a degree in acoustics, fully equipped to enter the acoustic profession. And it's nice to have played a small part in their career trajectory. I'm particularly interested in acoustics of spaces for the performing arts, and so I was researching into surfaces for diffusing or scattering sound, and also methods for accurately measuring sound absorption of elements in auditoria. I was very fortunate in having some brilliant research students helping me with this research work. One of those was Trevor Cox, who produced an outstanding PhD thesis and then went way beyond me and became an authority on the subject and wrote books on it and so on. Another one of my postgraduate students was able to validate a method for measuring the sound absorption of seating, which has become an industry standard now. So that is very satisfying to work with these bright postgraduate students. And incidentally, 2 of my former students have become presidents of the Institute of Acoustics, and a third of my postgraduate students is currently president-elect of the Institute. So that's kind of nice. When you're interested in auditorium acoustics, you have a desire to actually get your hands dirty and design some spaces and seeing them being built. And that's why I moved from academe, although not entirely, into acoustic consultancy. And my first job was to help with the design of an opera house. And the architect for that project decided he wanted to adopt a circular geometry for the opera house, surmounted by a dome, which of course has serious acoustical focusing problems. So I was being able to straight away bring the research work I'd done on diffusing surfaces into the design of this new opera house to actually counteract the focusing of the circular geometry. We brought in this new method of measuring seating absorption very accurately. So that was a very important thing in getting the reverberation time we were looking for. And it was a different experience from academe. We were dealing with other members of the design team, architects, mechanical engineers, theatre consultants. We had to understand what their requirements were for the design of this new opera house. They had to understand our requirements. So it was a collaborative effort in making sure all these requirements came together and produced the final design. And of course, on opening night, it can be quite nerve-wracking. But after a successful first night performance, where the audience and the performers have clearly enjoyed themselves, it can be a rewarding experience.
So you moved into consultancy because of your passion for performing arts venues. Have you seen many changes in the last 45 years?
I think there have been a lot of changes in the design of the acoustic design of spaces for the performing arts. If we go back to the early 1950s, for example, when the design of the Royal Festival Hall was being developed, all the acoustical knowledge that was then available was applied to the design of the festival hall, and the focus was really on getting the reverberation time right. But that knowledge at that time was not sufficient to guarantee a successful outcome in terms of acoustic quality. And in fact, the reverberation time turned out a little bit short. And that was partly due, in fact, to not being able to measure the seating absorption accurately, which I've already mentioned. And remedial measures were necessary to improve the acoustics. Not long afterwards, in the 60s and 70s, there was a flourishing of research in auditorium acoustics, focusing really on the way that reflections were arriving at the listener and the direction from which the reflections were coming from. Also around the 1960s, a new form of concert hall was developed in Berlin. It's called the Berlin Philharmonie, where the architect decided to place the audience close to the center of the concert hall and surround the audience, surround the orchestra with audience, sort of seated on terraces, a little bit like the terraces you get in vineyards. And so this type of hall became known as the vineyard terrace type of hall. And that form of hall has been copied many times since then, and it's still popular today. Since the design of the vineyard terrace hall or the surround type hall, there are two sets of opinions amongst acousticians as to which form produces the better acoustics. Is it in fact the vineyard terrace form, or is it the traditional rectangular, narrow shoebox form? And there's yet another group of acousticians who think we should really be developing a new form. So in the fairly recent new concert hall in Paris, the Paris Philharmonie, a new form, a new typology was developed called the bicameral hall, which has two chambers, the inner chamber providing the early reflections and the outer chamber providing the reverberance. So there are several different opinions amongst acousticians as to which form of concert hall is the best. And that's why the Institute of Acoustics, every 2 years or so, holds a conference on auditorium acoustics. So all these acousticians from around the world can come together and discuss which type of hall is best. And the conference is always arranged in a new venue. Next year in 2023, it's in the Stavros Niarchos Opera House. So as well as the papers and the discussions, there'll be an opportunity to listen to a performance in the new Opera House and discuss that as well.
Thank you, Raf.